You know that lingering fantasy we all have, right? Like, you're just going through your normal daily routine. You find this loose thread in the fabric of everyday life. You give it a tug, and suddenly a vault door just swings open.
Oh, yeah, the ultimate get-rich-quick scheme.
Exactly. But one that actually genuinely works. You just completely beat the system.
It's a deeply universal dream, I think. But, it usually stays a dream because the system is just meticulously designed to win. I mean, the house always has the edge.
Right. The house usually has the edge.
Ugh.
But welcome to today's deep dive. We have a really fascinating stack of sources here detailing a very specific day in television history. We're talking about May 19th, 1984.
Such a wild day.
It really is. That was the day an unemployed ice cream truck driver from Ohio just walked into a studio in Los Angeles and completely broke a national game show.
Yeah, and what makes this story so captivating is that, we're not talking about some criminal mastermind pulling a midnight heist here. There was no tampering with the equipment. He wasn't sneaking answers from a producer.
No inside job.
Right, exactly. This is the story of a guy who simply sat on his couch, watched television, and found a loophole that absolutely terrified network executives.
We are going to walk you through the mechanics of exactly how he pulled this off, step by step. But to really grasp the exploit, we kind of have to understand the mind of the person who orchestrated it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Well,
most of us watch a game show and we just, play along, we yell at the screen. But this guy looked at a game show and he saw a puzzle just waiting to be cracked.
so who was he? Let's get into his background.
So his name was Paul Michael Larson. He was born in 1949 and he grew up in Lebanon, Ohio. And from a very early age, Larson exhibited this highly distinct personality trait.
Which was?
He basically harbored this deep, fundamental aversion to the very concept of traditional, honest, hard work.
Wow. Just entirely opposed to the 9 to 5.
Yeah, his own brother actually noted that he just didn't see the value in going to a job, putting in the hours, getting a regular paycheck. He thought people who lived that way were like missing the point entirely.
So he was basically a lifelong shortcut hunter, always looking for the angle.
Exactly. I mean, he was running hustles in middle school. He would smuggle candy bars into class and sell them to his classmates at a massive markup.
Classic.
Right. But as an adult, his schemes became way more elaborate. At one point, he actually set up a fake business under a family member's name, hired himself as an employee, and then formally laid himself off,
Wait, what? Why?
just for the sole purpose of collecting unemployment insurance.
Wait, setting up a fake corporate entity just to fire yourself sounds like significantly more administrative work than just showing up to a normal job.
It does, right. But that's the paradox of the dedicated hustler. The actual effort doesn't matter as long as it feels like they're, pulling one over on the system.
The thrill of the scam.
Exactly. So by 1983, Larson is in his early 30s. He's twice divorced, living with his common-law wife, Teresa, and he's just bouncing between odd jobs,
Like what kind of jobs?
repairing air conditioners, driving a Mr. Softy ice cream truck in the summer. But his real full-time occupation was literally sitting in his living room hunting for opportunities.
And if you look at the sources, the setup in that living room was just wild. Picture walking into a guy's house in the early 80s and seeing an entire wall built out of 12 different, heavy cathode ray tube televisions.
Yeah, stacked on top of each other. He would sit there watching them all simultaneously, just waiting for inspiration to strike. And that is when his attention locked onto this brand new CBS game show called Press Your Luck.
I want to pause right here because, this is where the story shifts gear. Most people watching 12 TVs are just killing time.
Right.
But Larson is watching them like it's a surveillance operation. It's almost like a Vegas card counter, right? But instead of a casino floor, he's doing it in his living room in Ohio.
That's a perfect analogy, actually.
So let's dig into the target. How did Press Your Luck actually work, and what was he looking for on those screens?
So the central feature of Press Your Luck was this thing called the big board. It was this giant, imposing ring of 18 illuminated squares.
Like a big glowing frame.
Exactly. And inside those squares were rotating cash amounts, luxurious prizes like vacations or cars, and the show's infamous mascot, the whammy.
Right, the whammy.
Yeah, and during a player's turn, a selector light would just flash rapidly and erratically around the board. It bounced all over the place.
So the contestant basically has a buzzer in front of them, and they just slam it to stop the light wherever it lands.
Correct. If you land on cash or a prize, it gets added to your bank.
Yep.
But if you land on a whammy, which was like this little animated red monster that would come on the screen, it wiped out every single dollar you had won up to that point. Bankrupt.
Ouch.
Yeah. And the producers and the engineers who actually designed the board, they fully believed that the light sequence was entirely mathematically random.
But staring at his wall of TVs, Larson starts to suspect otherwise. Let me guess. He realized that technology in 1983 just wasn't sophisticated enough to generate true randomness.
Bingo. He strongly suspected there was an underlying pattern. So to prove it, he actually goes out and buys a VCR, which, I mean, in 1983 was a massive financial investment for a guy who's basically unemployed.
Oh yeah, those things were not cheap back then.
Not at all. So he records episodes of the show, and then he sits in front of his television for 6 straight months. 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah, he went frame by frame, utilizing the pause button, analyzing every single spin, tracking the movement of the lights, and his hypothesis was right on the money.
You found the flaw in the code.
He did. He discovered that because of the limited budget during the show's pilot phase, the board's computer had only been programmed with 5 specific light sequences.
Oh wow, only 5.
Just 5. The randomizer wasn't generating new paths at all. It was merely shuffling between those 5 predetermined loops.
It's basically like playing a slot machine with only 5 possible outcomes. I mean, if you memorize the outcomes, it's no longer gambling at that point.
Exactly. It becomes a skill game. And Luxon memorized all 5 patterns perfectly. But the real breakthrough, the thing that made him invincible, was discovering what we can call the safe harbors.
Okay, what were those?
He mapped out the entire board and realized that square number 4 and square number 8, counting clockwise from the top left, always contained a cash value and never, ever contained a whammy in any of the 5 patterns.
So as long as he hits 4 or 8, he is totally safe.
Right.
But wait, eventually you run out of spins, right? I mean, the game limits how many times you can actually hit the guzzer.
And that is the true genius of his discovery. In the second round of the game, the cash values in squares 4 and 8 also came with an extra spin attached to them.
Oh my gosh, an infinite loop.
Yes. If Larson could time his buzzer to land on those 2 specific squares, he would win thousands of dollars and he would earn his spin back immediately. His total spin count would literally never decrease. He could theoretically stand at that podium and play forever.
Okay, but knowing the theory while you have a pause button in your living room is one thing. Actually executing it under blazing hot studio lights with cameras in your face and a live studio audience watching is an entirely different level of pressure.
Absolutely.
He still has to actually get on the show first.
Right, which brings us to the audition. So May 1984 rolls around. Larson empties what's left of his savings to buy this cheap economy plane ticket to Los Angeles.
He's going all in.
He is, and he knows he needs to craft a persona. Game shows, they don't want cold, calculating robots, right? They want relatable, everyday people, people the audience roots for.
So what does he do?
He literally goes to a local thrift store in LA and buys a cheap, totally ill-fitting dress shirt for 65 cents.
I just love that detail so much. The mastermind orchestrating the ultimate television takedown is wearing a 65-cent shirt to look the part.
It's perfect. So he walks into the CBS studios and he just lays it on thick. He plays this desperate, down-on-his-luck ice cream truck driver who just really needs some money to buy his 6-year-old daughter a birthday present.
But if you have ever met someone where your gut just immediately screams no, you will completely relate to Bobby Edwards. He was the contestant coordinator for the show.
Oh, yeah. Edwards was not having it. He took one look at Larson and felt an immediate, massive red flag. He explicitly told his bosses, like, I do not want to book this guy.
But he got overruled, right?
He did. The executive producer, Bill Carruthers, completely overruled him. Carruthers heard the whole sob story and thought, you know, this guy's authentic desperation is going to make for phenomenal daytime television. So he gave Larson the green light.
Which sets up our taping day, May 19th, 1984. Larson is in the green room, ready to go.
Yep. His opponents that day are Ed Long, who is a Baptist minister from California and actually the returning champion, and Janie Litris, a dental assistant.
And the vibe was apparently pretty weird right from the start.
Very weird. The atmosphere was super tense. Litris actually later recounted that Larson had this really unsettling, kind of creepy smile the whole time. He wasn't making normal small talk with them.
Just laser focused.
Yeah, but she kind of brushed it off, feeling pretty confident she could take him.
And the wild thing is, the game actually starts out as a complete disaster for him. Because the first half of Press Your Luck isn't actually about the big board. It relies on answering trivia questions to earn your spins in the first place.
Exactly, and Larson's 6 months of obsessive VCR study did absolutely nothing to improve his general knowledge.
No trivia prep at all.
None. He totally floundered during the trivia round. There's this one point where the host, Peter Tomarken, asks which American coin features Franklin D. Roosevelt. Larson literally slams his buzzer and confidently shouts, "The $50 bill!"
A completely baffling answer, considering FDR isn't on the 50, and the 50 isn't even a coin.
It was so bad. So he finishes the trivia round with only 3 spins, which puts him in dead last place. And by the rules of the show, the person in last place always has to go first at the big board.
Okay, so the moment has arrived.
Right. He steps up to the podium, he stares down the flashing lights, he waits for his moment, slams the buzzer, and on his very first spin, he hits a whammy.
I have to stop you there.
Yeah.
Because if you are listening to this, put yourself in his shoes for a second.
Yeah.
He spent half a year staring at a screen. He memorized 5 incredibly complex patterns. He flew across the country.
Yeah.
And the very first time he touches the buzzer, he hits the one thing that destroys your game. I mean, it looked like the whole theory just blew up in his face on national television.
That is exactly what the audience thought. But Larson's first spin was not a failure. It was actually a highly calculated calibration.
Calibration.
Think about the difference between pressing a plastic button on a VCR remote on your couch versus hitting a heavy mechanical plunger in a live studio that's hooked up to a 1980s mainframe.
Oh, right. There's latency. It's like trying to stop a gas pump exactly at $20 or playing a video game on a really laggy internet connection. You have to learn the physical delay of the system.
Precisely. Larson knew he basically had to burn a spin to test the physical timing of the studio's buzzer against the actual real-world speed of the lights. He needed to sync his internal metronome.
That is incredibly bold to waste a spin like that.
It was, but the calibration worked flawlessly. On his next 2 spins, he hits square number 4 perfectly, twice in a row. So he finishes the round in last place, but he doesn't care at all.
Because he has the data.
Exactly. The patterns are verified, his physical timing is locked in.
The trap is completely set. So, moving into round 2, Larson does slightly better at the trivia, right? He earns 7 spins this time.
Yeah.
But because he's still trailing the other 2 players in cash, he goes first at the board again.
And this is the moment television history is made. He steps up. Early in the run, he actually looks a little shaky. He stops the board on a few odd squares while he fine-tunes his focus. He wins a trip to Kauai, he wins a sailboat.
Not terrible mistakes to make.
No, not at all. But then his demeanor completely shifts.
He finds the zone.
Ed Long, who was standing right next to him at the podiums, later described it as watching a man enter a deep, unbreakable trance. The studio gets incredibly quiet.
You could hear a pin drop.
Yeah, and Larson just starts hitting square 4 and square 8 repeatedly, like clockwork. $4,000 in a spin, $5,000 in a spin, $1,000 in a spin.
He is just accumulating thousands of dollars by the minute.
And because every single hit awards an extra spin, his total number of spins remains completely static. He is not losing any ground.
The host, Peter Tomarken, is watching this unfold. And if you watch the footage, you can literally see his confusion turning into sheer disbelief. I mean, the statistical odds of hitting a whammy are 1 in 6 on any random spin. But Larson just keeps spinning 10 times, 20 times, 30 times.
He spins 40 times without hitting a single whammy. 37 of those spins are for pure cash. He hits square number 4 20 separate times.
And the audience?
Oh, the studio audience is going absolutely wild because they just think he is the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
But if you take a moment and imagine being in the CBS control booth during this, it must have been absolute bedlam.
The panic was palpable. Michael Brockman, who was the head of daytime programming at the time, is rushed into the booth. Darlene Lieblet, representing the program practices department, is just staring at the monitors in horror.
They're realizing they're being taken to the cleaners.
Oh, yeah. The producers are literally screaming. They're asking if Larson is cheating. They're asking if they can physically cut the power to his podium. They're frantically flipping through the legal rule book, trying to find a reason to stop him.
But they can't do anything, can they?
They can't, because Larson isn't breaking a single written rule. He isn't using a hidden device. He isn't colluding with a staff member. He is playing the game exactly as it was designed to be played, just with flawless, machine-like execution.
It's incredible. And the run goes on for so long that they actually encounter a physical production problem, right? They run out of tape.
They really do. A standard episode of Press Your Luck was scheduled for 30 minutes. The crew had never even conceived of a scenario where one player would monopolize the board for this long.
If you've ever worked in live video production, you know that stopping a tape mid-record during a live-to-tape show is like the nuclear option.
It is the absolute last resort. But they had literally no choice. They had to halt production, change the massive tapes out, and eventually they had to split Larson's single turn across 2 separate broadcast episodes. That had never happened before.
So finally, after passing the $100,000 mark, which, by the way, is an astronomical sum for daytime television in 1984, Larson decides he has pushed it far enough.
Right, he doesn't want to get sloppy.
Exactly. So he voluntarily passes his remaining 4 spins. And this triggers an incredibly tense sequence.
It really does. So according to the rules, past spins must be taken by the next player in line. So Ed Long steps up, takes his 4th spin, and immediately hits a whammy, wiping him out completely.
Just terrible luck.
Yeah. So then the remaining spins pass to Jenny Leitris. She takes them, earns a few more through the board naturally, and she racks up over $9,000. But Janie is highly observant.
She realizes Larson is the predator in the room. He's not just lucky.
Exactly. So she makes this brilliant strategic move. She passes her 3 remaining spins back to Larson.
Which is such a smart play.
Her logic is flawless. The statistical odds are so heavily stacked against him at this point.
Yay.
If he is forced to take those 3 spins and hits just one whammy, his entire $100,000 fortune evaporates instantly. She is actively trying to force him into a mathematical trap.
And Larson is visibly furious about this, right?
Oh, he is livid. He complains on camera, saying he don't want the spins, it's not fair. But the rules dictate he has to take them.
The ultimate test of his nerves.
He steps back to the plunger. He drops back into his trance. First spin, he hits his pattern safely. Second spin, he hits it again. Totally safe.
But then the third spin.
On the third and final spin, the sheer mental fatigue finally catches up to him. He misses his timing just slightly. He hits the button early, and he lands on square 17 instead of his safe harbors.
Oh, man. The entire studio must have been holding its collective breath, waiting for that red monster to pop up and wipe him out.
But he just barely escapes. The square flips over to reveal a trip to the Bahamas.
Unbelievable. He survives the passback.
He does. The buzzer sounds, the game officially ends, and Paul Michael Larson walks away with $110,237 in cash and prizes.
Which completely shattered the all-time record for a single daytime game show appearance.
Smashed it.
Now, anyone listening to this is probably wondering the exact same thing the CBS accounting department was wondering. Did they actually hand this guy a check? I just find it hard to believe a massive television network would just part with 6 figures without a massive fight.
Oh, they fought it internally immediately. The moment the studio cleared out, the executives confiscated all the master tapes. They gathered the heads of virtually every department in a screening room, and they watched Larson's game frame by frame, just like he had done at home.
And what did they see when they watched it back?
They saw 2 glaring anomalies. First, out of 40 spins, Larson hit the exact same 2 squares 75 times. The statistical probability of that happening randomly is practically 0. And second, they noticed his body language. Larson was often reacting and celebrating a fraction of a second before the square even lit up.
He knew what the board was going to do before the board did it.
Exactly. He was anticipating, not reacting.
So they have definitive proof he knew the pattern. That's got to be game over for Larson, right? They don't have to pay him.
You would definitely think so. But Darlene Lablish and the whole CBS legal team thoroughly scrutinized the contestant release form. And Larson met all the eligibility criteria.
He didn't break any rules.
None. He hadn't tampered with any studio equipment. He hadn't brought in outside material or notes. He simply used his eyes, his memory, and his reflexes. They had absolutely no legal basis to claim fraud, so with very heavy hearts, they authorized the payout.
I assume the engineering team had some very long nights after that episode taped.
Oh, without a doubt. Within a month, the big board was completely reprogrammed. They wiped the original 5 patterns entirely and installed 32 new, highly complex algorithms, making it virtually impossible for the human eye to track.
They closed the loophole.
They did. And they also implemented a strict monetary cap for all future contestants to prevent a repeat performance, just in case.
So Larson gets his money. He legally beat the house on national television. You know, a normal person takes that $110,000, maybe pays off their mortgage, invests in a mutual fund, and just fades into a comfortable, quiet life.
A normal person, yes. But we are talking about a man whose entire identity was built around outsmarting the system.
The shortcut hunter.
Exactly. The money didn't change his core drive at all. It merely provided a much larger bankroll for his obsessions. The aftermath of his victory really showcases this fascinating psychological blind spot.
What do you mean?
Well, the exact same traits that made him capable of beating the game show made him uniquely vulnerable to losing absolutely everything.
It's the tragedy of the perpetual hustler. They can never just take the win and walk away. So where did all the money go?
Okay, so after paying roughly $28,000 in taxes, he attempted a few local real estate investments that quickly soured. But the most revealing incident happened in November of that exact same year, 1984. A local radio station announced a promotional contest. They would read a random serial number over the airwaves, and if a listener possessed a $1 bill with that exact alphanumeric sequence, they would win $30,000.
Please tell me he didn't do what I think he did.
Larson drove to the bank and withdrew $100,000 of his game show winnings entirely in $1 bills.
Wait, stop and just think about the sheer physical logistics of that. 100,000 individual paper bills. Imagine sitting on your living room floor, surrounded by towering stacks of cash, frantically checking tiny serial numbers one by one.
It's unhinged.
The physical labor required to sift through that much paper completely defeats his entire philosophy of avoiding hard work.
It really does. He spent days doing it, and surprise, surprise, he didn't win the radio contest.
Of course not.
So realizing the absurdity of having that much loose cash lying around, he deposited about half of it back into the bank. But he lazily left roughly $50,000 in singles just sitting around his house.
It's out in the open.
Basically. And a few weeks later, while he and Teresa were out at a Christmas party, burglars broke in and completely cleared out the cash.
That is brutal.
No.
To win it all and then just have it stolen out of your living room.
Yeah, and the robbers were never caught. Larson, in this huge fit of paranoia, actually accused Teresa of orchestrating the theft.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and that accusation was the final straw for her. She separated from him immediately and demanded he move out. So, within just a couple of years of his triumphant TV appearance, the record-breaking money was entirely gone, and he was alone.
And without the money, he goes right back to the only thing he knows how to do, hustling.
Exactly. Fast forward to the 1990s, he had taken a job as an assistant manager at a Walmart in Ohio. But the pull of the scheme was just too strong. He ended up getting heavily involved with a company called Pleasure Time Incorporated.
Let me guess, Pleasure Time Incorporated wasn't a legitimate enterprise.
Not even close. It was a massive, fraudulent, multi-level marketing scheme. They conned about 14,000 investors out of $1.8 million by selling shares in this completely fictitious American Indian lottery.
Wow. And this is exactly what you meant about its psychological blind spot earlier. When you fundamentally believe there is always a secret backdoor to wealth, you don't see the red flags of a scam.
Right.
You just see a kindred spirit offering you the next shortcut.
It's the ultimate irony, really. The man who legally beat a system fell prey to an illegal one. And when the Securities and Exchange Commission, the IRS, and the FBI all closed in on the operation, Larson went on the run.
He fled.
He completely abandoned his life in Ohio and fled to Apopka, Florida. He lived totally off the grid, hiding from federal authorities until his health eventually failed. He died of complications from throat cancer in February 1999 at the age of 49, still a fugitive.
That is just a staggering movie-like narrative from start to finish. In fact, it actually was adapted into a movie in 2024 starring Paul Walter Hauser because it just has all the classic elements of a thriller.
It really does. The obsessive preparation, the flawless execution, the unbearable tension in the studio, and then the inevitable tragic fallout. But you know, the real tragedy of Paul Michael Larson isn't just the loss of the money, it's the completely squandered potential.
How so?
He possessed a genuinely brilliant, highly analytical mind. I mean, he had the intense focus and discipline to study a television screen for 6 months straight to solve a really complex logistical problem.
That's true.
If he had channeled that intense dedication into, computer science or a legitimate pursuit, he likely would have been wildly successful. But his absolute refusal to walk the traditional path ultimately became his complete undoing.
It really brings us right back to that fantasy we talked about at the very beginning of the deep dive. Finding that loose thread in the universe and giving it a tug. Larson found it. He tugged it.
He pulled it as hard as he could.
But the thread didn't just unravel the game show's vault. It ended up unraveling his entire life, which leaves you, the listener, with a lingering thought for today.
Yeah.
In our modern digital age, where our entire lives, from the social media feeds we scroll every day to the global financial markets we depend on, are entirely governed by algorithms and automated systems. What hidden patterns are out there right now, just flashing in the background, waiting for someone with enough obsession and a pause button?